Hey, welcome to the Boltathon. This is Francois, and he is the crypto payment solutions architect at Authgate. And the topic for his session today is called the brick and mortar payments on the Lightning Network, which is pretty cool because I think one of the downsides to on-chain payments is that you have to wait for confirmations. And I really do think Lightning Networks make it ideal for brick and mortar stores. So this is fantastic. I'm really interested to go.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so for today's session, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to break the session up into the three parts. So the first part, we're going to look at the problem with cash and card payments and the opportunity that Lightning opens up for payments in the real brick and mortar, sort of the physical world, you could say. And then the second part of this session, I'm going to try and do a hands-on, sort of a demo to show you how the device works. My internet speed is not that great at home. My upload speed is not that perfect, but we'll try and do a video to show you how a transaction works, and then you can see it for yourself. And then finally, we can do a Q&A session. You're welcome to sort of stop me at any point and ask a question as well. Okay, so
hey, Francois.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Would you mind screen sharing and so that we can see some of the slides?
Okay. So sorry, I forgot about that one. Let me just quickly get into there.
No worries.
Okay, so let me just, am I on screen sharing or on video? I'm not sure.
You should share screen. So in the middle of your Zoom client is a little square rectangle.
Okay. There it is. Okay, I'm on video. Let me try and do integrated webcam, switch that off, or how do I get that off? Sorry. Video settings. How do I get it back to screen? Share. Okay. Oops, I think I've got the wrong screen here.
There it is. And also, as a reminder, you can also turn off your video, and that will help us with your stream.
Okay. So I just want to make sure it's my, you see the explosion there, or you see my Microsoft Word?
We see the explosion.
Okay, perfect. Then we're on the right place. Okay. So the one thing that people sometimes misunderstand with banking and cash is that banks make a lot of money with cash. Banks deal with cash. It's traditionally always the case that money and banks go along. Banks don't really like cash. So about 6 months ago, I was very privileged to be part of a work group with some of the top senior people from banks. And there's a couple of very interesting things that came out of the meeting. I was more a spectator than a contributor, but I still learned a lot from the banking side. So in South Africa, and this information is about South Africa, but I think the rest of the world will pretty much be the same. So in South Africa, in the first part of 2018, there were more than 200 cash in transit heists. Now, this is something that's absolutely unique to South Africa, and this was also the reason why we did this session with some of these bank officials. And they basically told us that collectively the 4 largest banks in South Africa spend almost $1 billion annually in managing cash. So for the banks to manage cash like this, they don't make a lot of money out of cash. They do charge a fee, but it's basically just to cover their costs. This $1 billion is actually a debt loss for the top 4 banks. This is combined. So the reason why this is so expensive is when they move money to areas outside of the main central areas in South Africa, more to the rural areas. They told us that it costs 34 cents to the dollar to transport cash. Now that number sounds completely screwed up. I actually had to call the guy back afterwards and say, are you sure it wasn't 34 cents for $100? And they said, no, it's 34% of the value of cash is spent in transporting the cash. But the real cost was actually probably closer to 45 cents because the cash management companies actually sponsor or subsidize the transport of cash outside the areas, and they make most of their money inside, in the main sort of center of the cities. Another thing that came out of this meeting was that cash is counted on average 7 times, and even after that, there's still almost like a 0.4 something discrepancy between the lowest and the highest numbers that they got in cash. So they do lose money due to miscounting. So 7 times from the point that the merchant accepts the cash until the cash is locked up in the safe. And this explains basically why cash is so expensive for banks to manage. Okay. On the other hand, small businesses like cash. Most small and medium-sized businesses prefer cash because of the lower cost. The banks carry the cost of the cash, so unless you deposit cash back into the bank, you're not going to pay a lot of money. So most small businesses they prefer cash, but they don't like credit cards. This photograph I actually took in December 2017 in Brussels. This was a small shop in Brussels that I just walked past, and I just noticed that they don't take Visa and MasterCard. Anyways, so why is it that small businesses don't want cash? So there's an estimated about 25 million small and micro merchants in Europe. This is all the flea market stands and the small merchants and sort of the mom and pop kind of shops, and very few of those merchants actually accept credit card payments. Now, there's a company in Europe, iZettle. They were recently bought by PayPal for $2.2 billion. And iZettle sells about 1,000 of their card terminals every day. So every day they sign up 1,000 merchants. And even with 1,000 merchants, it would take them 100 years to fully cover just the European geographic area, give everybody a credit card payment facility. So that gives you an idea of the scope of the market. This is an enormous market. 78 million transactions are made daily at vending machines across Europe. And the stat might be a little bit old, like 3 years old, but probably less than 5% of these vending machines offer any kind of card payment solution. In Europe, if you go to the main train stations and the airports, you'll see a lot of the vending machines have credit card facilities. That's only because there's high volume vending machines. The lower volume vending machines, it just doesn't make sense for the vending guys to support card payments. It's just too expensive. And we'll get to that a little bit later. So food deliveries, online food deliveries, this is just another interesting stat, almost 30 billion euros in 2019 alone, and it's growing by 10% annually. Even in South Africa, we see a lot of food delivery people. There's, as the sun sets, there's scooters driving everywhere. There's literally tens of thousands of food delivery scooters around in Pretoria and Johannesburg. So I'm sure you experiencing the same sort of thing in Europe. Okay. So as I said, in 2017, I was in Europe and I just took photographs of vending machines. I looked at everything. And this is just an example of some of the vending machines. It doesn't always sort of produce or vend actual food or chocolates or cool drinks. You get vending machines for parking, for massage chairs and bathroom access. So these are just bunch of photographs that I took of all the kinds of vending machines and bicycle rental, as I said, parking, and this is a sort of thing that you see in Europe, and I'm sure in America as well, and the rest of the world. But there was only one photograph here, and this is the one on the bottom left. You see there's a little device in the middle there. That's a Nayax credit card machine. So just a little bit of a backstory. I've got a history with credit card machines. In 2012, I actually built a credit card POS terminal. And we worked very closely with Visa, and we worked a lot with some of the banks here in South Africa and even Australia. And one of the interesting things about a credit card machine is that when you accept payments on a credit card machine, the credit card has no way to authenticate the card machine. The card machine can verify the credit card. So a lot of people think that it's easy to clone a credit card. It's not easy to clone a credit card. It's very difficult to clone a credit card, but it's very easy to clone a card machine. So I've got some history with credit cards, and we can go into that. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But if you start calculating how much it costs the vending industry to accept credit cards, there's a reason why 95% of the machines are still only using cash, even if a lot of people are not carrying cash with them at this point. So I just got this pricing of the internet earlier this week. And this is a site in America that sells credit card machines, terminals to vending machines. And they list this device as $300. Now, the same device in South Africa is probably about $450. Our price is like 50% higher than the price that I've got here. But you'll see they've got a monthly fee of $8. Our fee in South Africa would be pretty much the same. And then they have a credit card processing fee of about 6%. So you can imagine if you're selling something, a Coke, for instance, let's say something that's €1, you're going to pay 6 cents just for that vend. But there's also the monthly fee, and there's also the cost of the device. And I'm going to leave the calculations to you, but a typical vending machine does about 200 transactions per month. So that is less than 10 vends per day if you take a 20-day month. You can do this calculation, and you can see the extra money that the vendor have to pay just to be able to accept card payments. So for just as an example, the vending industry, credit card payments is extremely expensive. Okay, so this comes back to my previous example. Is credit card machine safe? No, credit card machines are not safe. When you pay with your credit card at a large retailer or a big shop, a well-known shop, maybe in a big shopping center, I think it's pretty safe to use your credit card, because if there's any fraud, it would immediately point back to this large establishment, and it's unlikely that you would run into trouble at a large institution like this. But when I built the credit card machine that in 2012, I spoke a lot to guys at the certification labs, at the PCI labs, and we had to go through a lot of certification steps. And one of the questions that I asked them is, if I take a credit card machine like this and I remove the insides and I built my own credit card machine, it's not certified, it's not authorized, and you put your credit card in that machine, is there a way that my credit card can refuse giving this machine sensitive information? And they said, no, there's no ways. So I can enter my PIN on a machine like this. I can insert my card. You can read all my card information. I can enter my PIN, and the merchant can just tell me, sorry, it doesn't seem like the transaction has gone through. Let me get another terminal, and then he gets a real terminal. By that time, he's captured all my information from my credit card, and I've actually demonstrated to guys that I can make a card like this, just a MagSwipe card, put it into an ATM, and withdraw money. Now, something like this won't happen at a large retailer quite easily, but it happens at small, little, maybe there's a back street shop, some scaly shop, they might do stuff like this. And the moment you start putting credit card machines on every vending machine, and the moment you start giving every person a credit card machine to accept credit card payments, then the problem just gets, exponentially bigger. So credit card machines, if you speak to the banks, they don't like cash. And when I spoke to them and I said, what's the solution? Do we get rid of cash? And they said, no, they can't give a credit card machine to every small merchant. It's impossible. So they don't have a solution. We always think the banks, think ahead and they've got a solution for this. They don't have a solution. So I'm telling you all of this basically to explain to you that there is a big, huge, massive market in the world. When you look at small merchants, when you look at vending machines, when you look at taxis and Ubers and deliveries, there's a huge market that is not handled very well with credit card machines. There's huge risk with credit card machines and high transaction costs. But likewise, cash is a big problem for the banks. So they want to get rid of cash. Okay, so what we did was we created a product called attestation device. Now, attestation device is not a payment device. I sometimes myself call it a payment acceptance device because that's what people understand, but it's not really, it doesn't do payments. So our device doesn't perform a payment. There's no money flowing through the device. The device just provides proof that payment has been done. And this device works extremely well with Lightning Network transactions. And I'll show you now. So this was about 2 weeks ago, from the 20th to the 23rd of March. We actually used the device at a music festival. This is a small town. It's a very small town. There's not a single traffic light in this town. And if you, even in South Africa, tell people about this town, they don't even know that this place exists. So it's a really small town. There's only 2 cell phone towers outside on the mountains, and those towers went on and off over the 3 days that we were there. So it's a really rural sort of place. But anyways.
Hey, Francois, so why did you choose that place?
Yes. So the music festival, my wife is actually a musician and she performed a lot. We've been there many times before, and I spoke to the people managing the festival and told them that we could give them a payment option with Lightning Network and with credit cards. We actually did 2 types of payments. For all the musicians, we did the transactions using the Lightning Network. They didn't even know they were using Bitcoins, but because it was a closed loop kind of payment system. And this is just another view of the same town. There's basically 2 roads in this town. And what we did over the course of 3.5 days, we did 415 transactions, of which about 350 were Lightning Network payments. And this was with bad cell phone towers and bad internet connections and really slow data lines, and everything worked perfectly, apart from the times that the cell phone towers went off. So this gentleman that you see behind that table, he actually didn't want me to take a photograph of him. It's an 83-year-old guy, and he was actually using our device to accept payments. And he couldn't stop talking about this device. He actually came back to me and said, can he also pay other people with this device? And I said, no, you have to use your cell phone. He said, okay, can you install this for me on my cell phone? And he started paying, bought some wine at a place. I saw him buying wine and sort of stood next to him, and he just loved paying with his cell phone on a device like this. And he was actually paying with his credit card, not with the Lightning Network. But all the other musicians and artists were paying with Lightning Network transactions. So this was one of our, success stories there. That a merchant with, an 83-year-old guy, you wouldn't expect him to like something like this. They were actually thinking that this is what we use in the big cities. And they were the first people to really use this. Anyways, so this is just one of our guys doing a transaction at a restaurant. You can see the lady has got a small little device in her hand. It's about matchbox size. And you just click on your phone, tap the device, enter the amount, and do the payment, and it's all over and done in about 3 seconds. So it's an extremely nice and easy way to do payments. So I'm showing you this side as well. In the first part, I've highlighted what the opportunity is with smaller merchants. And for Lightning Network to be successful and to grow, it doesn't help we do things just as good as credit cards can do this. Lightning Network needs to be at least 2 times, 3 times better than anything else out there. And this is what we believe is possible. So if we take the Lightning Network and we really start pushing it, and we're doing transactions really quick, really fast, the smaller merchants, the restaurants, the delivery people, the vending guys, these people are going to really sort of grab this and run with this. And Lightning Network can do that for us.
Hey, Francois, so how are the invoices communicated between the device and the mobile?
Okay, so yes, that's the next step there. I'm running a little bit early, yes, but I'm not going to dig in too deep. I think there would be a lot of questions maybe. So this is typically how a Lightning Network transaction would work today. There's different ways that you could do this, but I just modeled this on the Boltathon payment. So when I paid for a session, this is basically what I did. There was a customer node. That's my own node. In this case, I used Eclair, so it was a custodial kind of node. I had the Eclair app on my phone, and via the customer node, I could pay the merchant Lightning node, which was the Boltathon node. But there was also a web server involved. So the web server communicated directly with the merchants, the Lightning node from Boltathon. And once the payment was done, my web page just refreshed and said, "Thank you, we've got your payment." So this is how the payment works. So there's 2 channels really, from my cell phone to my Lightning node, my custodial Lightning node. It doesn't have to be a custodial Lightning node. I could have maybe run a complete Lightning node on my cell phone, or I could have been on a PC with a Lightning node. But usually you work from one machine to your Lightning node. Lightning node talks to the merchant Lightning node, does the payment, and the rest is pretty well known. I don't want to dig into the extreme technical stuff here. Just important to note that the merchant web server gets the original invoice from the merchant Lightning node, and the merchant web server then presents that to me on a web page. I scan the QR code, or I copy paste the invoice, do the payment from my customer Lightning node. Once the payment has been done, the merchant web server gets a notification, payment is completed, successful. The web page refreshes, and that's all that there is to a normal Lightning node. So when we do a Lightning node transaction with our device, we just add 2 small components to this whole process. So you'll see the merchant body pad. Now this is a small battery power device. The battery lasts about a year. It's a small coin battery. doesn't have an internet connection by itself. It's just a small little handheld device, little commercial little product. And then we also have what we call an attestation server that creates digital certificates. Now the device, the merchant-owned device, the body pad, contains secret keys. We use asymmetric cryptography, but so the private and public keys from the merchant device and the attestation server are exchanged at some point, and they have a secure relationship. They can communicate to one another absolutely securely. Nobody can replay transactions or intercept transactions and modify them. These two are linked, virtually linked, you could say. So in this scenario, the same thing happens as what happened previously. We still have our customer going through his Lightning node. First of all, the customer goes to the merchant web server, says, please give me an invoice. But in this case, in our case, the customer actually enters the amount on his cell phone. He sends it to the body pad. The body pad sends back to the customer cell phone a payment request certificate. The payment request certificate is then sent to the merchant web server to say, please give me a Lightning Network invoice. Then the Lightning Network invoice comes back to the customer Lightning node. In fact, the Lightning node pays the merchant Lightning node, and the confirmation that the transaction, the invoice payment notification goes to the merchant web server. From the merchant Lightning node, there's a notification that the payment has been done. The merchant web server can then, via the merchant Lightning node, create the attestation certificate, the payment attestation certificate. Now that's the certificate that the body pad or the merchant device will understand. And this goes all the way back to the customer cell phone. The customer cell phone sends this back to this merchant device, and the merchant device can then validate and verify the authenticity of that payment attestation certificate. So there's only two components. So we just, you can think of this as like a third layer on top of, like Lightning Network is a layer on top of Bitcoins. This is a layer on top of the Lightning Network. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it may sound pretty complex, but it's actually very, very straightforward. And the advantages of this is that we don't need need an internet connection for the merchant. So imagine a restaurant where you've got 15 waiters running around, sort of bringing food and taking payments. They don't have time to spend 5 minutes or 2 minutes, 3 minutes to take a payment at a customer. They want to do the payment, and they've got other things to do. So you can give each waiter a device like this, and when the customer is ready to leave, he just goes to the nearest waiter or his waiter, or the waiter comes to him, he taps the waiter's device, do the payment on his cell phone, and once he's done the payment on his cell phone sends that proof of payment, the payment attestation certificate, to this body pad device that's carried by the waiter, and it says payment confirmed. It's as simple as that. So you don't need anything other. You don't need an internet connection at the merchant side, and this is also why it's quite nice for delivery people and small merchants and flea market stands. The guys don't always have internet connection. I know internet connection is available pretty much everywhere, but because we don't need an internet connection. We only need a certificate coming back from the attestation certificate all the way back by the customer, and the customer says, "Here's my proof. I've done the payment."
So one of the questions that we have is they're asking, so your company hosts both the customer's LN node and the merchant's LN node?
No. So we don't get involved in the payments at all. We don't see our company as a payments company. We don't want to work with money. So if you guys want to use this kind of technology, you have your lightning nodes, you have your merchant lightning nodes. So if a merchant wants to accept payments, for instance, with our device, the only extra thing that they need is an attestation server. Now, that doesn't have to be a physical server. And the way I've drawn it here, this is actually like a daemon that you can run on your merchant lightning node, or you can run it on your web server, or you can make use of our servers. We've got servers running at Amazon. You can call on that server to generate the certificate for you, or you can host your own server. So the attestation server, if you do enough transactions, you can actually have your own attestation server, and you can configure your own devices with that secure relationship between your attestation server and your devices. So we can't, let's say, for example, we are being hacked and somebody steals digital keys from us. It doesn't affect you at all. You've got your own cryptographic keys on your attestation server. Those keys are also shared on your devices, and your devices can validate any attestation certificate generated by your server. So we don't get, even if we shut down, even if we go out of business, your devices will still work. You can still generate your attestation certificates. We can shut down all our servers, and you can still do transactions. So I remember a while back, Visa was actually offline in some regions in the world for I can't remember how long it was, but that's because it's a centralized sort of system. I'm sure they break the regions up into different sort of servers, but if their data center goes offline, then nobody can do a transaction. With this system, with the attestation system that we've got, you can actually, still do transactions. If the merchant's lightning node goes offline, or his servers go offline, yes, then he can't do a transaction, but anybody else can still do transactions.
Yeah, actually, I heard Wells Fargo actually went down for like a few days, and there's just like a scary experience not to be able to withdraw any money from your bank. Like that should be your money, right?
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So this is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so our premise is that if you want to accept Lightning Network payments, you don't need a Lightning Network node in your shop or in a vending machine. I see a lot of people use Raspberry Pis and they stick them into vending machines or coffee machines, and they accept Lightning payments with that. Now, it's very cute, and a few years back, we did something similar to that for a different company that I worked. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are putting a Raspberry Pi Lightning Network node in every vending machine, there's, I think there's something like 25 or 35 million vending machines in the world. I think it's actually more than that. I don't have the right numbers here with me. But you can't run a Lightning node or manage Lightning nodes in all of those machines. And each of those machines needs a network internet connection. So if you use payment attestation, all you need is probably something that's like $40 device that you can put into a vending machine, doesn't need an internet connection, and you can do a payment at that machine. If you've got a taxi driver or an Uber driver driving around wanting to accept payments, he doesn't even need internet access. Just has a small device, tap the device, do the payment, and everything happens on the Lightning Network. So there's really very little that can go wrong. Now, one other thing that I need to point out as well, and this is one of the very serious lessons that I actually learned building some devices like this, and this is that you don't want two communication channels. So I worked for a company called Zapper until about 1.5 years ago, and this company does payments, mobile payments. So you scan a QR code, you do the payment on your cell phone, and then once you've done the payment on your cell phone, using your own data link to the internet, the merchant then gets the confirmation via another channel. It's either via SMS or via his own internet channel. He gets a confirmation that you have paid him. So you're using 2 internet channels. And probably something between 5 and 10% of the transactions was never confirmed. So merchants stand there and the customer is paid and the merchant never gets a confirmation because the confirmation didn't arrive in time or there was some problem. And in the end, the customer just shows his phone to the merchant and says, see, I've paid, and the merchant says like, I'm not so sure, but okay, if you say so, okay, I'm not going to be bad about this. So let's just accept that. It's fine. You can go. But you always feel a bit weird doing that to a merchant. And it's happened to me a couple of times. So having 2 payment channels, 1 payment channel and 1 confirmation channel is very troublesome. And with this system that we've got here, we only have 1 channel, and that's the cell phone going to the internet. That's the only channel. If my cell phone data doesn't work, if I don't have reception, or I can't do a payment, then the payment just doesn't happen. There's nothing bad that can happen apart from not being able to pay with your phone. But when you've done the payment, everything is successful, the money has gone off your account, and the merchant says he hasn't received any confirmation on his side, that's a very bad situation. So I think I should try and do a demonstration for you guys. So I'll have to go back in and try and put my video up here. And just give me
give
a
it
second.
a shot.
Okay, so let me just get to. Okay, now you need to help me, Andrew. Sorry, yes, meeting controls, but I don't see them. So something that's hidden. Ah, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to start my video. Okay, and I think I need to switch to another camera here. I assume I can do that. Okay, and I'm just going to put some light on. So the devices that we've got, I'm just going to sort of show you the device like this. I hope it's not glaring too much, but this is one version of the device. We've got a number of different devices. We've probably got like 10 different products at this point in time. This is the device. This is how it looks like. This is just in the form of a watch, so I can wear this on my arm. I've got another version of the device as well, which basically hangs on a lanyard. This is a more common sort of one that we use. And just while I'm videoing this as well, we've got a device like this. This is a USB version of the device. You can plug this into a Raspberry Pi or a point of sale system or a PC or a laptop, and it gives you the payment functionality on that. We also have, this is what we call the hack pad, if I can show it to you like that. So the hack pad, let me just keep that quiet. So the hack pad is a small little board that you can use, and we use this in vending machines, and we've got a couple of places where we use this. You can connect this directly to an Arduino hardware board, or in the case that I've got here, I've got a small USB to serial board that I've connected to this, and I just use it like this. And this is all that you need to take to accept Lightning Network payments. So this is just a couple of the products. I couldn't carry the vending machine over here, so otherwise I would have shown you a Coke vending machine using the same transactions. So let me try and do a transaction for you now. So I'm just going to get my cell phone over here. And, right, so when you do a transaction, let me just unlock this and open up the app. This is the app. We didn't produce this app ourselves. The app actually was written by another guy that we've got an Android and an iPhone version of the same app, and all the libraries and code behind the transaction is available if people want to write their own app. So we also believe that, there should be many different kinds of apps. We don't just want one type of app, just our app. You don't have to use our app per se. If you want to write your own apps, we can make you the libraries available to you. So anyways, so if I'm doing that, I'm going to do a tap to play. I've just got one hand here. I'm holding the camera on the other hand. So I've pressed a button on the device and I'm touching the device. And now I can enter the amount on the device. So I think I've got a bit of a glare here. So I'm going to enter amount. Let me enter amount 75.12. So I'm doing this payment in rands. But I can explain to you a little bit more why we do it in rands. We believe that merchants don't really want Bitcoins, not at this point in time at least. So I'm going to do a payment amount of 75 Rand and 12 cents. It's just an arbitrary figure that I've done. I'm pressing OK, and now you can see the device actually shows me the amount, and I press accept. And now I'm just waiting for the Lightning Network node. I tested it before I went to bed last night. That's 100%. And that was about 3 seconds. And the transaction is done. So if I switch this off and let's go back to I just want to hide the video here again. Stop the video. So I can actually show you that I did the transaction if that would be interesting to you guys. Andrew, I just want to make sure, is my screen still shared, or do I need to share that probably?
Yeah, you should probably share it again.
Okay. So, righto. Can you see the web page there?
One second. I think it's loading on Zoom. Perfect. There you go.
Okay. So you see a web page there with some payments. And you can see there's the payment I just did. I'm just storing the Rand value in the memo field of the invoice. So that's the 75 Rand and 12 cents that I just did. Right now, April the 7th, you can see it's like almost 20 to 6 in the morning here. And that's a transaction I just did now. So the transaction is, as fast as Lightning Network can do it, we can probably shave off another half a second if we really try, because we've got a lot of debugging stuff running at this point in time. But this is straight Lightning Network. We used LND. I used this LND web client that I just got from GitHub. Nothing strange here. We didn't change anything on Lightning. It just works. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, I'm sure there will be a couple of questions on how we do this.
Yeah, so if you're in the chat and you have any questions for Francois, you can drop it in the chat box or use the Q&A function, and I can keep track of it that way. But let me do this real quick. 1 second. Sorry, I was sneezing. Had to.
Yeah.
Let me.
By the way, I forgot to show you this, but I've got a small Epson printer, receipt printer on my table here as well. I'm not going to switch to camera mode again here, but it works exactly the same. We've got a card that can fit into the back of these typical receipt printers that you find in shops. And you basically just tap your phone on the receipt printer and you do a payment that way as well.
Cool.
So if you've got some more, I could probably show that to you as well. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, so I actually do have a couple questions for you. Have any businesses integrated this into their business so far?
So we're working with a few companies. Interestingly enough, there's companies that wants proof of delivery. So it's not really a payment per se, but we are building that for them on top of the Lightning Network. So basically what we do is they pay like 1 Satoshi. And the fact that they've actually paid the Satoshi and that you could prove that they've paid it, that's a proof that the item was delivered and it was delivered to the right person. So it's all transactions that was done prior, and when the delivery guy comes, you know that it is the right person that accepted the parcel. So
That's
we've done
incredible.
that. Yeah, and we also we haven't yet started with that project, but we're also working with a company that actually does deliveries for the building industry, and they latch on the same sort of idea that they could just with the tap of a phone confirm that they've received a delivery. They don't have to sign a piece of paper because that doesn't really mean anything. Anybody can scribble something on a piece of paper. So now they know that the stuff has been delivered and it is the correct amount and so on.
I guess that makes sense
So
why you call it a proof of attestation, because it doesn't have to be just for payments. It can be for like what you were saying, proof of delivery.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. We've even built sort of prototype systems where we opened a boom, for instance. So you go into a building or a parking area and so on, and you just tap your device, your cell phone on a device, and it proves and opens the boom for you. So you can, provide any kind of attestation. Payment attestation is the one that we think is probably going to run with Lightning Network. We're working with some of the banks, but the banks are very slow in picking up any kind of technology. It takes years for them to really do anything, but I see a huge opportunity for us in Lightning Network.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, and then so you basically, like, if this takes real traction, you're essentially cutting out and destroying like the permission blockchain ecosystem.
Yeah, you could probably say that. I was at one point I was explaining this. I was on CNBC Africa talking to Ran. He's a crypto guy,
Right, right.
and I actually caught him off guard there for a moment because I said, um, for like 25 years, we've tried to put everything online. All transactions are online. Everything is online. And we are trying now to take things offline again. So we're taking an online transaction and we're making it an offline transaction again, because it's really, the device is offline. We're proving things in an offline way, but we piggyback on the online environment.
And so another question from the chat box is, does this need to be supported in the wallet? Are there any wallets currently supporting your technology, or are you working on it in any way?
We're talking to some of the companies that does wallets. If anybody wants to work with us, we totally open at this point in time. We are a small team, so we do have time constraints. We're only 4 people at this point in time. So I'll be in Europe in May next month, middle of next month. In Paris, I'll be in the Netherlands, and we're going to talk to some companies over there to see if they would like to integrate this into their wallets. Because I think it just makes perfect sense for them. And we don't want to get into a situation where there's 2 or 3 or 5 different standards or different versions of the same thing, and a wallet has to implement all of those different protocols. So we're working with the guys, and if there's anything that we need to change on our side to make it easier and more compatible with Lightning, we're totally willing to do that. So we work with the developers, but we haven't yet had a wallet implementing our code per se.
Got it. Yeah. And, so you kind of mentioned earlier in the talk that, every vending machine might have to have like a Raspberry Pi in them if they want to do an LN transaction or something like that.
That's right.
Is yours a replacement? Like they would just need this one device in every vending machine for it to work?
Exactly, yeah. So it's smaller than a matchbox, the device that we put into a vending machine. And we've got a vending machine standing at our offices, a machine that was lent to us. And you basically just tap the vending machine with your cell phone, and then your cell phone says, select the product, you press the button that you want, and a code drops out of the machine. So that's all that you need. It's a really small, it's a really cost-effective kind of device. You can imagine there's no monthly charges like you have with credit card machines. Lightning Network makes the transaction fees. dramatically less, much smaller. So it's one of those things. It's a no-brainer. This is the low-hanging fruit. This is the opportunity that Lightning has. Online transactions is good, and I think there's a huge market for it. But I think the physical world, the physical payments, the brick and mortar payments, that's where the big test is going to be for Lightning Network.
Yeah, definitely. So how much is a device then?
The body pad, the one with the screen, the nice casing, that's our most expensive device. That device goes for about $50. So you can work it out in euros. So it's not very expensive. The other devices are slightly cheaper. They go to like $35, $40 in that range. But it's not an expensive technology.
Fantastic. Well, Francois, thank you so much for your talk. I learned so much. I actually wasn't aware that banks could spend like up to $1 billion just managing cash, which is kind of ridiculous if you ask me. But it makes sense because you gotta like hire like the trucks, you gotta hire security too to transport all of them and the drivers and stuff. So yeah, that makes sense. If people have more questions about what you're doing, what you're building, where can they find you?
I think the easiest is just to email me, francois@authgate.com. We've got a few videos up on our website also with some of the crypto stuff. So you can go to YouTube and just search for Authgate, and everything would be there. But they can contact me directly.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's it, folks. This was our last session for the Boltathon. It has been absolutely amazing. I'm blown away by everyone's response. We've been selling tickets throughout all day. So I don't even know how many, I have no idea how many people actually ended up attending the conference. So that's like really cool. And one of the benefits of having an online conference, I wanted to thank all you people for watching and attending these sessions, and check out the project presentations tomorrow. That's going to be the final thing. And we're going to have closing ceremonies at 6 p.m. PDT. So on that note, guys, I am burnt out. I am so happy, and I'm going to take the rest of the night off. I hope you all do too. Thank you for joining me on this awesome ride. And Francois, thank you for an amazing presentation. You're going to disrupt enterprise blockchains, which is great. And I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.